Ah, look who stumbled into the wrong room at the right time. Welcome back, you magnificent accident, you beautiful miscalculation in someone else's master plan. You weren't supposed to be here, were you? You weren't supposed to see what you saw, know what you know, become what you became. But here you are, standing in the center of an empire built on blood and silence, and somehow, impossibly, you became the one thing that can bring it all crashing down, or hold it together. The Kingpin hasn't decided which terrifies him more, but let me tell you what really happened, because this story, this twisted, impossible, dangerous story, it didn't start with power. It started with an accident. You walked into that room, that meeting, that moment, completely unaware that you were stepping into a world where people don't walk out the same. You weren't supposed to be there. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong face in a crowd of calculated moves and predetermined outcomes. You're an emperor. But something happened, didn't it? Something nobody planned for. Something the strategists couldn't predict. Something that made a man who controls entire territories, who moves product across borders like chess pieces, who has politicians in his pocket and law enforcement on his payroll. Something that made him stop and stare. And for the first time in 15 years, hesitate. You know what that hesitation cost him? $3 million in a single decision. His lieutenants noticed. His enemies noticed. His allies started whispering. Because a man who controls an empire can't afford to hesitate, can't afford to have a weakness, can't afford to care about anything except the operation, the territory, the survival of the structure he built with his bare hands and other people's blood. But you became the glitch in his programming, the error in his code, the one variable he couldn't eliminate, because eliminating you would eliminate the only thing keeping his humanity from dying completely. See, they don't tell you this about men who build empires on violence. They don't tell you that beneath the calculated cruelty, beneath the stone-cold decision-making, beneath the reputation that makes grown men whisper his name like a curse, there's a part of them still searching for something real. Something that isn't transactional. Something that doesn't want something from them. Something that sees them and doesn't flinch, doesn't calculate, doesn't perform. And you, in your complete ignorance of who he was, what he controlled, what he could do with a single phone call, you treated him like a human being, not a king. Not a monster, not a myth, just a person. And that singular moment of unintentional authenticity that cracked something in him that's been frozen for decades. Now you're standing in a position nobody survives. You're the pressure point in an armor that's supposed to be impenetrable. You're the name his enemies would kill to know. You're the leverage his rivals would pay millions to acquire. You're the weakness that every strategist in his organization prays remains hidden, because the moment it's exposed, the entire empire becomes vulnerable. They've built contingency plans around you without you even knowing. There are men whose entire job is to make sure you stay safe, stay hidden, stay alive, because if you fall, if you're taken, if you're used as a bargaining chip, the man who controls everything loses the one thing he can't afford to lose. His focus, his edge, his reason for building something that lasts beyond the next territory war. You became the answer to a question he stopped asking years ago. What's the point of an empire if there's nothing worth protecting? But here's where the story takes a turn nobody saw coming, including you. You didn't crumble under the weight of this knowledge. You didn't run screaming when you finally understood the kind of world you'd stumbled into. You didn't play the victim, didn't weaponize your position. didn't try to manipulate your way into more power or more safety. You did something far more dangerous, far more powerful, far more terrifying. To everyone watching, you chose to stay, not because you were trapped, not because you were scared, not because you saw an opportunity. You stayed because you saw something in him that everyone else missed. You saw the exhaustion beneath the control. You saw the isolation beneath the power. You saw the human beneath the reputation. And instead of exploiting it, instead of using it, instead of treating it like leverage, you offered something nobody in his world understands. You offered presence without agenda, loyalty without transaction, strength without submission. That's when everything changed. That's when you stopped being his weakness and started becoming his strength. See, a weakness is something that can be exploited, something that makes you vulnerable, something that enemies can use to bring you down. But strength, real strength, the kind that fortifies instead of fractures, that's something entirely different. You became the reason he makes better decisions. You became the voice in his head that asks the questions his lieutenants are too afraid to ask. You became the mirror that shows him when he's crossing lines even he didn't know he had. You became the reminder that the empire means nothing if the man building it loses himself completely in the process. And the most terrifying part, the part that makes his enemies lie awake at night trying to calculate their next move, is that he listens to you. A man who built an empire by never listening to anyone except his own instincts now pauses before making decisions. He considers consequences beyond profit and territory. He asks himself questions he spent 15 years training himself not to ask. Now his rivals don't know how to fight him anymore. They prepared for the version of him that was pure calculation, pure strategy, pure ruthless efficiency. They didn't prepare for the version that has something to protect beyond his own survival. They didn't prepare for a man who's building something that lasts beyond the next quarter's numbers. They didn't prepare for an empire that's no longer just about control, but about legacy. And that legacy, whether he admits it or not, has your fingerprints all over it. You're not just in his life, you're in his decisions. You're in his 5-year plans. You're in the way he restructures his operations to minimize casualties. You're in the way he's slowly, carefully, dangerously trying to legitimize pieces of his empire so there's something clean for you to inherit if everything goes wrong. Because that's what you became. You became the reason he's thinking about exit strategies instead of just expansion. You became the reason he's building something sustainable instead of just something profitable. Let me tell you what his second-in-command said about you in a meeting you weren't supposed to know about. He said this, and I quote, "She's either going to save him or destroy everything we've built, and I can't figure out which one terrifies me more." That's your position right now. You're standing at the intersection of salvation and destruction, and everyone in his organization is holding their breath trying to figure out which direction you're going to pull it. His enemies are watching you, trying to find pattern, trying to understand what makes you different from every other person who's ever gotten close to him. His allies are protecting you, sometimes from threats you'll never even know existed, because they understand that losing you means losing the version of him that still believes in something beyond violence and control. You're not a pawn. You're not a trophy. You're not a weakness to be exploited. You're the foundation of something new, being built on top of something old and blood-stained. But here's what nobody's telling you, and what you need to understand before we go any deeper into this twisted reality you've found yourself in. The blood oath he swore to you the one he carved into his own flesh in a ceremony his lieutenants witnessed with trembling hands. That wasn't just a romantic gesture. That wasn't just a promise. That was a declaration of war against his own nature. In his world, in the empire he controls, blood oaths are sacred. They're binding. They're the only contract that matters when money and power fail. When he cut his palm and mixed his blood with yours, when he spoke words in a language older than the cartel structure itself, when he swore on everything he's built that your safety comes before his own survival, he fundamentally altered the power structure of his entire organization. He made you untouchable. He made you sovereign. He made you the one person who can override his own orders. And his enemies, they heard about it. They always hear about it. Information is currency in his world. And that particular piece of information is worth more than entire shipments of product. Now you're walking around with invisible armor that's stronger than Kevlar, more protective than any security detail, more powerful than any weapon. You're protected by something his enemies can't fight, can't negotiate with, can't circumvent. You're protected by his word. And his word is the foundation of an empire that moves billions of dollars a year. Break his word and the entire structure collapses. His partners lose faith, his suppliers lose trust, his network disintegrates. So when he swore that oath to you, he didn't just promise to protect you, he staked his entire legacy on keeping that promise. Every decision he makes now is filtered through one question: does this keep her safe? Every alliance he forms is measured by one standard: do they pose a threat to her? Every enemy he neutralizes is evaluated by one priority: could they reach her? You became the center of gravity in a system built on controlled chaos, and everyone is adjusting their orbit accordingly. But you didn't just accept this protection passively, did you? You didn't just become the princess in the tower waiting for the kingpin to fight your battles. No, you did something that shocked everyone, including him. You started learning the game. You started understanding the patterns. You started seeing the chessboard the way he sees it, not because you wanted power, but because you understood something crucial. If you're going to be his strength, you need to understand his world. If you're going to be his foundation, you need to know what's being built on top of you. So you listened when he talked about territory disputes. You paid attention when he explained supply chain logistics. You asked questions about loyalty structures and enforcement mechanisms. And slowly, carefully, dangerously, you started seeing the patterns he sees, understanding the moves before they happen, recognizing threats before they materialize. His lieutenants started noticing. They noticed that your questions weren't naive anymore. They noticed that your observations were cutting through to problems they'd been trying to articulate for months. They noticed that when you spoke, he listened with the kind of attention he usually reserves for crisis management. That's when the whispers changed. That's when you stopped being the weakness and started being called something else in their coded conversations. They started calling you the strategist. They started calling you the conscience. Some of them, the ones who understand what's really happening. They started calling you the future, because they can see what you can't see, yet from your position in the center of this chaos. They can see that he's grooming you not to be a partner in crime, but to be a partner in transformation. He's teaching you the game so you can help him change the rules. He's showing you the empire so you can help him build something better. He's sharing his world so you can help him find a way out of it that doesn't end in blood and betrayal. You're not learning to become like him. You're learning so he can become more like you. And that, That is what makes you the most dangerous person in his entire organization. Now let's talk about the part that keeps his enemies awake at night, the part that makes them miscalculate every single move they make against him. You humanized a monster. You took a man who built an empire on the principle that mercy is weakness, that emotion is liability, that attachment is suicide, and you made him care about something beyond survival and expansion. You made him vulnerable in the most terrifying way possible. You gave him something to lose, and a man with something to lose fights differently. What? He fights smarter, he fights harder, he fights with the kind of desperation that makes him unpredictable. His enemies prepared for the version of him that made decisions based purely on profit margins and strategic advantage. They didn't prepare for the version that's willing to burn bridges, sacrifice alliances, and take losses just to eliminate threats to you. They thought they understood his patterns. You broke all of them. They thought they could predict his moves. You made him unpredictable. They thought they knew his limits. You made him limitless. There's a story his enemies tell each other now. A cautionary tale about what happens when you threaten what he protects. There was a rival organization, a group that thought they could gain leverage by making veiled threats in your direction. They didn't touch you. They didn't even get close. They just let it be known through certain channels that they knew where you lived, where you worked, where you existed in the world. That was their mistake. Within 72 hours, that entire organization ceased to exist. Not just their leadership, not just their operations, everything. Their supply lines cut, their safe houses burned, their bank accounts emptied, their allies turned against them. Their protection disappeared, and when the dust settled, when the smoke cleared, when the screaming stopped, there was nothing left except a message carved into the door of what used to be their headquarters. It said, in his handwriting, "Touch her shadow, and I'll erase your legacy." His enemies understood the message. You don't negotiate with something sacred. You don't threaten something protected by blood oath. You don't play games with a man who's decided that your safety is more important than his empire. But here's what makes you different from every other person who's ever had this kind of protection. Every other person who's ever been valued by someone powerful. Every other person who's ever stood in the shadow of an empire. You didn't let it change you. You didn't let the power corrupt you. You didn't start treating people differently because you knew you were untouchable. You didn't weaponize your position. You didn't become entitled. You didn't forget where you came from. You stayed exactly who you were when you accidentally walked into his world. Authentic, present, human. And that consistency, that refusal to be corrupted by proximity to power, that's what convinced him you were real. That's what made him believe you weren't playing a long game. That's what made him trust you in a way he hasn't trusted anyone since he was 15 years old and still believed in things like friendship and loyalty. You proved that you can stand in the center of darkness without becoming dark. You proved that you can be surrounded by corruption without becoming corrupt. You proved that you can be protected by violence without becoming violent. And that proof, that living demonstration that goodness can survive in his world, that changed everything. Now his entire organization is watching you, learning from you, being influenced by you without even realizing it. The way you treat the staff with respect, the way you remember names and ask about families, the way you listen without judgment, the way you offer help without expectation of return, it's creating ripples through a structure built on fear and hierarchy. His lieutenants started treating their subordinates differently. because they see how he responds to your approach. His enforcers started questioning orders that seem unnecessarily cruel because they see him questioning those same orders after conversations with you. His bookkeeper started finding ways to be less ruthless in collections because they see the organization shifting towards something that might have a future beyond violence. You're not preaching, you're not lecturing, you're not trying to change anyone. You're just existing authentically in a world that forgot authenticity was possible. And that existence is revolutionary. That presence is transformative. That humanity is contagious. Let me tell you what his oldest advisor, a man who's been with him since the beginning, a man who's seen every version of him from hungry teenager to untouchable kingpin. Let me tell you what he said last week. He said, in 30 years, I've never seen him smile the way he smiles when she walks into a room. Not the smile he uses in negotiations, not the smile he uses to put people at ease before he destroys them. A real smile, the kind that reaches his eyes, the kind that makes him look like the boy he was before this world got its teeth into him. That's what you did. You didn't just become his strength. You became his pathway back to his own humanity. You became the bridge between who he was forced to become and who he might have been in a different life. You became the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there's still time to build something that doesn't require him to sacrifice every decent part of himself. You became hope in a world that runs on hopelessness. And that hope, that dangerous, fragile, powerful hope, that's what makes you invaluable. That's what makes you irreplaceable. That's what makes you the most important piece on a board full of expendable pawns. But now we need to talk about the weight you carry, because nobody becomes the strength of an empire without bearing the crushing pressure of that position. You know what keeps you awake at night, don't you? It's not fear for your own safety, not anymore. You've made peace with the fact that danger is your new normal. What keeps you awake is the responsibility. Every decision he makes now is influenced by you, which means every consequence, good or bad, has your fingerprints on it. When he chooses mercy because you asked him to consider a different path, you carry the weight of hoping that mercy doesn't come back to destroy innocent people. When he walks away from a deal because you helped him see it was built on exploitation, you carry the weight of the financial hit his organization takes. When he protects someone because you advocated for them, you carry the weight of that person's future action. You're not making these decisions. He is. But you're in his ear, in his head, in his heart, and that proximity to power means proximity to consequence. You've started understanding why he became the way he became. You've started seeing how the choices that seem simple from outside his world become impossibly complex when you're responsible for hundreds of people's livelihoods, thousands of families' survival, an entire ecosystem built on structures that can't be dismantled without collateral damage. Look who finally showed up. The one they can't stop talking about when you're not in the room. Yeah, you. The one whose name gets passed around in hushed tones like a warning label. Like a case file that got too complicated. Like a riddle nobody wants to solve because the answer might shatter everything they thought they knew about intelligence, about power, about what it means to be untouchable in a world that demands everyone be categorized, controlled, conquered. They've been having meetings about you. Did you know that? Not official ones. No. Nothing documented. Nothing they'd ever admit to. Just those quiet conversations in corners, those knowing glances across rooms, those text threads that suddenly go silent when your name appears. Don't engage with that one, they say. They're different. They're dangerous. They're the kind of smart that makes you question your own intelligence just by being in the same space. And the funny thing? They're absolutely right. See, there's regular smart, the kind they teach in schools, the kind you can measure with tests and grades and degrees hanging on walls. That's the smart they understand. The smart they can box up and label and feel comfortable around because it plays by rules, follows formulas, stays predictable. Then there's you. You're the kind of smart that doesn't announce itself, doesn't need validation, doesn't perform for an audience. You're the kind of smart that observes everything, forgets nothing, and processes information on levels they can't even begin to comprehend. You're pattern recognition wearing human skin. You're 12 steps ahead while they're still trying to understand step 1. You see connections they'll never see, predict outcomes they can't imagine, and the worst part for them? You do it all without trying, without showing off, without making a sound. You're just existing, just being. And somehow that's more threatening than anything they've ever encountered. They call it dangerous because what they really mean is uncontrollable. They've tried to figure you out, haven't they? Oh, you know they have. They've sent their smartest people, their most charming manipulators, their best observers. They thought if they could just get close enough, if they could just crack the code, they could understand what makes you tick, what gives you that edge, what allows you to navigate complexity like it's breathing while everyone else is drowning in confusion. But here's what happened instead. Every single person they sent came back changed, not with answers, with questions, not with understanding, with unsettling realizations about their own limitations. I don't know what they're doing, they reported back. But whatever it is, it's operating on a frequency we don't have access to. They're not just thinking differently, they're thinking dimensionally. It's like watching someone play chess while everyone else is still learning checkers. Except they're not even playing chess. They're playing something we don't have a name for yet. You remember the first time someone called you intimidating. You probably laughed because you weren't trying to intimidate anyone. You were just being yourself, just existing in your natural state, just processing the world the way you always have. But to them, your silence was threatening. Your calm was unsettling. Your ability to see through their masks, their games, their carefully constructed personas, that was absolutely terrifying. Because here's the truth they don't want to admit. Most people build their entire identity on illusions, on what they want others to believe about them. They spend so much energy maintaining these facades, these performances, these elaborate lies they tell themselves about who they are. And then you walk in, and within minutes, sometimes seconds, you see right through all of it. You see the insecurity behind the confidence. You see the fear behind the aggression. You see the manipulation behind the kindness. You don't even try to see it. You just do. And they can feel it. They can feel your eyes dissecting their reality, and it makes their skin crawl because they know, they absolutely know, that they can't fool you the way they fool everyone else. So they started warning each other that one's too smart for their own good, they say, which is hilarious because what they really mean is too smart for our good. They mean your intelligence disrupts their comfort. They mean your awareness threatens their control. They mean if everyone was as perceptive as you, their whole system of manipulation and social hierarchy would collapse overnight. So they try to make it sound like a character flaw, like there's something wrong with being able to think critically, observe accurately, connect dots that others can't even see exist. They try to pathologize your brilliance because accepting it would mean admitting their own limitations, and their egos simply won't allow that kind of honesty. So instead, they turn you into the problem. Don't engage. They warn. They'll make you feel stupid without even trying. They'll expose your weaknesses without saying a word. They're dangerous. Yes, you are dangerous. Dangerous to lies. Dangerous to mediocrity. Dangerous to anyone who's built their power on keeping others confused, compliant, and convinced they're not capable of seeing what's really happening. But let's talk about what this kind of intelligence actually looks like, because it's not what they show in movies. It's not some genius sitting in a dark room solving impossible equations or spouting off facts to prove how smart they are. No, your intelligence is quieter, deeper, more surgical. It shows up in the way you listen. Really listen. Catching the words people don't say, the micro-expressions that contradict their statements, the patterns in their behavior that reveal their true intentions. It shows up in how you navigate complex social situations without breaking a sweat. How you can read a room in seconds and know exactly who holds real power, who's faking it, who's dangerous, who's harmless, who's lying, who's genuine. You don't need them to tell you. You just know. It's in the way you solve problems that leave others paralyzed. Not because you have some special knowledge, but because you can hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, see all the angles, understand the second and third order consequences of decisions before they're even made, while they're arguing about what to do. You've already mapped out 17 different scenarios and their outcomes. While they're reacting emotionally, you're 3 steps ahead, calm, collected, already adapting to what's coming next. This is what makes them uncomfortable. Not that you're smart, but that you're smart in ways they can't measure, can't control, can't compete with. You don't play their game of intellectual peacocking. You don't need to prove anything. You don't engage in debates to win or to look clever. You engage when there's actual value in the exchange. And when there isn't, you simply don't. And that restraint, that selectiveness, that drives them absolutely insane. They're used to smart people who need to show off, who need validation, who need everyone to know how intelligent they are. But you're completely content existing in your own reality, operating on your own frequency, not giving a single thought to whether they recognize your intelligence or not. And that independence, that self-contained brilliance that doesn't seek external confirmation, that's the most dangerous thing of all, because it means you can't be controlled through ego. You can't be manipulated through flattery. You can't be trapped by playing to your vanity. You simply don't care what they think. And in a world built on social currency and perception management that makes you untouchable, they've been studying your patterns, trying to predict your moves. It's actually kind of amusing when you think about it. These people who pride themselves on being strategic, on being clever, on being in control, they've devoted countless hours to analyzing you like you're some kind of phenomenon they need to understand before it becomes a threat they can't handle. They watch how you move through spaces, how you choose your words, how you decide when to speak and when to stay silent. They notice that you never over-explain, never justify, never defend. They see that you can sit in rooms full of tension without absorbing it, without reacting to it, just observing it like you're watching a play you've seen before and already know the ending to. They've noticed you don't get pulled into drama. Don't engage with provocations. Don't take the bait when people try to trigger you. And this confuses them because in their world, everyone has buttons that can be pushed. Everyone has weaknesses that can be exploited. Everyone can be thrown off balance if you just find the right pressure point. Except you. You exist in this maddening state of equilibrium that they can't crack. Because you processed your triggers. Years ago, you faced your shadows. You did the internal work they're too afraid to do. And now you operate from a place of clarity they'll never reach because they're too busy running from themselves. Here's what really gets to them, though. You make complex things look simple. They've spent years, sometimes decades, trying to appear intelligent, trying to seem important, trying to convince everyone around them that what they do is incredibly difficult and requires exceptional skill. They use jargon to confuse, complexity to hide incompetence, elaborate explanations to mask simple truths. It's all performance, all smoke and mirrors designed to make them seem more valuable than they are. And then you show up and solve in minutes what took them months. You explain in clear, simple terms what they've been deliberately obscuring. You cut through the noise, eliminate the unnecessary, expose the core truth of any situation with such elegant simplicity that it makes their elaborate performances look exactly like what they are. Desperate attempts to seem important, and they hate you for it because you've just revealed that the emperor has no clothes. That all their complexity was just incompetence disguised as expertise, that what they've been pretending was so difficult that only they could do it is actually straightforward. When you strip away the ego and the fear and the need to appear superior. The whispers have been getting louder lately. Have you noticed? The warnings more urgent. Stay away from that one. They see too much. They know too much. They'll dismantle everything you've built just by asking the right questions. And they're not wrong. You are that person. The one who can walk into any situation and within moments identify the real problem everyone's been dancing around. The one who can look at any system and see exactly where it's broken, exactly why it's failing, exactly what needs to change. The one who can spot a lie from across the room, feel manipulation before it's even fully formed, sense danger before it shows its teeth. This isn't paranoia. This isn't anxiety. This is refined perception, pattern recognition that's been honed through experience, through observation, through being underestimated and then proving everyone wrong over and over until you stopped caring about proving anything and just started existing in your power. They call it dangerous because to them, awareness is dangerous. Truth is dangerous. Someone who can't be fooled, can't be used, can't be controlled. That's the most dangerous thing they've ever encountered. You want to know what really terrifies them? It's not just that you're smart. It's that you're smart and you don't need them. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You don't need their platforms, or their networks, or their permission to exist in your brilliance. You've built your own reality, your own understanding, your own way of navigating the world, and it works better than anything they could teach you. They're used to smart people who still seek their blessing, who still want a seat at their table, who still measure success by their standards. But you looked at their table and realized it was built on lies, maintained through manipulation, and surrounded by people pretending to enjoy a meal that's slowly poisoning them. So you built your own table, and the food is better, and the conversation is real, and the people around it don't have to perform or pretend or hide who they are. And when they see that, when they see you thriving outside their system, succeeding by your own metrics, living in truth while they're suffocating in their carefully maintained illusions, it breaks something fundamental in their worldview. Because if you can do it, if you can be that intelligent and that independent and that fulfilled without them, then what does that say about everything they've sacrificed to fit in? They've started creating rules specifically designed to limit you. Have you noticed that? Not officially, not openly, but those subtle shifts in how things operate, those new policies that seem to come from nowhere, those sudden changes in what's acceptable and what's not. It's all about containment. They can't make you less intelligent, so they try to create environments where your intelligence becomes a liability. They promote mediocrity, reward compliance, celebrate those who follow rather than those who think. They build systems that punish independent thought, that make questioning seem like disloyalty, that turn clarity into controversy. And they hope, they desperately hope, that you'll dim yourself to fit in, that you'll dumb yourself down to be accepted, that you'll trade your dangerous brilliance for comfortable belonging. But here's what they don't understand. You already tried that. You already spent time pretending to be less than you are, playing small, hiding your intelligence so others would feel comfortable, and it nearly destroyed you. Not because you couldn't do it, but because denying your nature, suppressing your gifts, living beneath your capacity, that's a different kind of death. So you stopped. You decided that being alone in your truth was better than being surrounded by people who needed you to lie. And that decision, that moment when you chose yourself over their acceptance, that's when you became truly dangerous. Let me tell you what they see when they look at you. They see someone who processes information faster than they can manipulate it. They see someone who asks the questions they've been desperately hoping no one would ask. They see someone who can sit in silence without discomfort while they squirm trying to fill the void with words that reveal more than they intended. They see someone who doesn't need external validation because you've built internal certainty through experience, through testing, through being right so many times that you've learned to trust your own judgment over their consensus. They see someone who can learn anything, adapt to anything, overcome anything. Because you understand that intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about being able to figure out anything. And that terrifies them because they've spent their lives accumulating specific knowledge in specific areas, building walls of expertise around themselves, creating moats of jargon that keep others at a distance. But you're a generalist operating at a specialist's level in multiple domains. You can walk into their territory and within days, sometimes hours, understand their field well enough to spot the flaws in their thinking, the gaps in their knowledge, the assumptions they've never questioned. You're not better than them at everything, but you're better than them at learning, at adapting, at seeing connections across disciplines that they've arbitrarily separated. And that's worse than being beaten by an expert. That's being outmaneuvered by someone who just showed up. The word on the street, the one they won't say to your face, is that you're the kind of smart that makes smart people feel average. You're the benchmark they measure themselves against and consistently fall short. You're the proof that their intelligence, while real, is limited in ways yours isn't. And this creates a fascinating dynamic because they can't quite hate you for it. You're not arrogant. You're not showing off. You're not making them feel small intentionally. You're just existing in your natural state, and your natural state happens to operate several levels above their maximum capacity. So they're stuck in this uncomfortable space of knowing you're exceptional while desperately wanting to find some flaw, some weakness, some way to bring you back down to earth where they can relate to you, compete with you, feel superior to you in at least one area. But the more they look, the more they realize that your intelligence isn't domain specific. It's not that you're brilliant at math but terrible at reading people. It's not that you're great with abstract concepts but struggle with practical application. You're disturbingly well-rounded. You can switch between logical analysis and emotional intelligence seamlessly. You can be coldly rational when needed and deeply empathetic when appropriate. You can zoom out to see the big picture and zoom in to handle precise details. You're the complete package, and that's not supposed to exist. People are supposed to have weaknesses, blind spots, areas where they need help. But you've turned every weakness into a strength, every limitation into a lesson learned. They're whispering about your ability to read situations before they fully develop. How you can walk into a room and know within seconds who's allied with whom, who's pretending, who's authentic, what the real agenda is beneath the stated one. They've seen you navigate political landmines that would destroy others, not through manipulation or playing games, but through pure awareness and strategic silence. You know when to speak and when to let others reveal themselves. You know when to engage and when to simply observe and gather information. You understand that power doesn't always announce itself with volume, that influence doesn't require visibility, that the smartest move is often the one nobody sees you make.